What impact do you want to have on the world? At General Dynamics Information Technology, GDIT, we put technology to work on some of the most complex government, defense, health, and intelligence missions. Grow your career beyond your imagination with meaningful work that matters at an award-winning top workplace. If you are driven by a vision of a better and more secure future, join us and apply now at gdit.com/careers.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipschutz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee and co-host of the program with Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal, a longtime entertainment reporter, and pretty much like the captain of our fighter jet here, right? You know, you're kind of like the Top Gun.
I am so ready to be Maverick.
Is that your call sign? What would your call sign be?
Oh, it'd be bad. It'd be something that you couldn't put on a plane because it'd be dirt.
I would be blue because I'm an umpire in my spare time.
Oh, no. You'd be number one dad. That's what you'd be. Right. I spent time with the Blue Angels this last week. Now you go, Blue Angels, why do we care about the Blue Angels? They're not coming to town, right? No, they've got a huge movie that has been playing in IMAX theaters and will be on Prime Video beginning the 23rd. And what this is a chance for you to sit in the pilot's seat and see exactly what they see in the course of an air show. This has never been done before, and they really wanted to do it for the 75th anniversary, but then what happened?
COVID.
And so it changed things, but what it did do was give them time to kind of align with the folks from Maverick. And they were able to kind of use some of their technology. They have things in this that you will not see in Maverick, because Maverick was able to put a camera in the back seat of a plane, but they don't have enough room in the Blue Angels planes to do that. So they have a lot of GoPros, but they also used a helicopter to do this whole thing. But it's amazing to see the kind of footage they get, because it's unreal. And we'll talk to people who actually, figured out how to do all this. Glenn Powell, who was in Maverick, he was one of the hotshots in the whole thing. He is now a producer of the Blue Angels because he was that fascinated by what they were able to do. The one that really pops in this movie, and you'll be surprised, is a guy they nicknamed Cheese. His real name is Chris Kapuchansky. Kapuchan. You can see why he's Cheese.
Right.
And he said that's what happened, was nobody could pronounce my last name. So somebody just said, you're Cheese. And those nicknames are not necessarily chosen, but you don't get to choose your own nickname. It's not based on like Hotshot or, King Stud or anything like that. It's usually something that you screwed up on. And that's where you get your nickname. It's based on something kind of lesser. So Cheese, I asked him all the questions I wanted to know. I said, well, gee, what is it like being in that really close space where you're wearing this very tight jumpsuit? They wear tight jumpsuit. Yeah. And I said, it must be just hell. He said, oh, you lose so much water weight, drink a whole bottle of water before they get in. And as soon as they get out, they hydrate again. Because he said, you're holding on, and it's like you're holding a 45-pound spring. And that's what you maneuver all around this area. And he said, it is really difficult. But you are so in tune with the other, it's six pilots that are in this formation. They make the Delta formation and all that. You know exactly what they're thinking at any given time. You are able to read their mind and know what they might be feeling. And then when they get really good, it is not the first day out of the chute. They can get within 12 inches of each other on their wing. You have to work toward that. And he said, I knew some of these guys so closely that I could tell that they would scrape the blue cheese off their salad when we got a salad for our lunch, and how they would act or react to whatever the given situation was, because that's how close you get. And you're on the road for 300 days out of the year, so that when you're doing these air shows, you know exactly how they're going to behave. That whole thing surprised me, but they have a limited shelf life. You can't be a Blue Angel forever. You basically have a couple of years that you're a Blue Angel, and then they rotate you out and you're doing something else. But he said, we're texting, we're talking. That group that he was with originally still gets together. In fact, they were together for the premiere of the film in Pensacola. And he said, we don't really care about, we don't talk flying. We talk about family because we know everything about each other's families and what they're up to, if they've had any new kids, what all this is all about. And he said it's a relationship you never get any other way. And to me, that was really fascinating. You see them in their kind of testing rooms, or you'll see when the captain kind of tells them all, you really screwed up on this one and you got to do better. You see that kind of stuff, which I don't think we got in Top Gun. And then you get the whole process of how they're picking the new captain or boss, as they like to call him, the new boss for the next year. And the fear factor that goes through them, am I saying the right thing? Is this what I need to do to get this job? The guy who's been the captain 3 times, or been the boss 3 times, 3-time boss, hasn't happened since. Greg Wooldridge is one of the producers of the show. And he said, you can teach them all how to fly. Flying is not the thing. It's the personality. So what kind of personality? Could we make it? I do not think so. I think I would be flushed out in the first week and they'd say, yeah, Bruce, it was really nice, but there is a job I think I could do, and that's the narrator. You're at the air show and you get to say, now they're coming through and they're doing the whatever formation. I think I could do that one, but that's on the ground. Up in the air, forget it.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. I mean, I don't mind a roller coaster here and there, but I don't know if I want to hold a 45-pound spring and worry about, scraping wings with another pilot 12 inches away from me. That's insane.
And I would go like, Terry had a bad night last night. Am I going to trust him up in the air? Is this going to be good? Or are we going to be like the new fatalities of the Blue Angels? I couldn't do it. But it's about 90 minutes, holds your interest, and you really feel like, I'm up there. I'm up with them. And that's as good as I need. I do not need to be up there flying with them in the back seat. Do not want that. The film also brings into play the first female pilot. She's from Minnesota. Amanda Lee is her name. And you get to see how she gets into this. It screams for a sequel. You want to see what her time is. The whole show that they're covering is the 2022 year. So, they barnstorm across the country and they do those 20-some shows in the course of a year. And you see them going from one place to the other, and how they get better so that they can get close. Like Cheese says, we're not there. We're not 18 inches apart on that first show. You're not going to see that right away. But when we get to the last show, that's when the expertise comes out.
I got to check this out.
It's one of those ones you got a documentary. Oh, yeah. Do I want to see a documentary?
No, this is
Angels.
Yeah.
Hey, I kind of know what I'm getting. They've done other films in the past, but this one, because of the technology, because of something like Maverick, they were able to get really, really, really close and have a helicopter up there that normally they don't allow helicopters in that space. The footage is unbelievable in the air. The stuff on the ground, you can have your qualms with, where you go, okay, you guys got to lighten up a little bit. Because I asked Cheese, I said, those tight old flight suits, what are they like when you get out of the plane? He said, they are wringing wet. You have sweat so much through that suit. I got a chance. We have for you the interview I did with Paul Crowder, who's the director of the film, and Greg Wooldridge, this 3-time boss. And they talk about why they did this kind of thing, how they did this thing, and what it means to be a Blue Angel.
All right, so let's go to that interview, and then we'll be back shortly after that.
Why now? Why are we doing a Blue Angels film now?
America needs it. They need to see this way of life. They need to see this exceptionalism, this joy that can be brought to the surface by something as spectacular as the Blue Angels, right? So it's now. It should be all the time. But now we need it the most because of the polarization of the country, a bit of that, and the depression in people's minds. Things are hard to get to, and to see something that brings joy and inspires them to overcome that, that's why it's now. And we've got the technology to bring stuff to view that Paul can talk about that we've never had before.
Yeah, the photography is incredible. But do you mount the cameras inside the planes, or what do you do? How do you get that?
Well, with various different ways. As far as the cockpit cameras, in Top Gun Maverick, they were able to use two-seater jets, put this huge box hidden between the front seat and the back seat, pull the lens out and shoot the guys in the back seat.
Make it look like they were flying.
Yeah, but make it look like they're the pilots. We couldn't do that. Our pilots are in the front seat for a start, and we don't have that space, and generally they're flying a one-seater. So we, with Sony, we used a camera they were developing, this GoPro-sized camera called the RXO, and that gives us almost as good a quality as the Venice. So we were able to mount those in the cockpits. And we could only do the early shooting. We had to go with seasoned pilots. So then, the 2 and 3 year pilots were putting them in. Later in the season, we were able to put them in more planes. We had a look back camera that went underneath the jet. We were able to mount the Venice to do that for a couple of days. We got the Venice on the wings of one of the jets for a session or two. And we got the helicopter up for like 3 sessions as well, 3 or 4 sessions on different occasions. And the rest of the time, it was our cameras in great vantage positions, the whole and the cockpit cameras, because what we wanted to do was put you right in the cockpit, put you right there, be in the air with you, be in the cockpit with them, and not be the position of the camera in the same position that the audience gets to see at a show.
Does it throw the pilots off? I mean, when they have something like that, they're probably not used to that.
They're seasoned pilots. I think that they work with GoPros and stuff, I think, at times themselves for training. The look-back camera is something they do for training, especially on the one jet, because Boss is seeing all the other 4 or 5, depending how many, the 3 or to 5 jets, depending on the formation. So they have that all the time. And so I don't think it was that off-putting for them. I think the off-putting stuff was like the jet in front of you disappears and suddenly there's a helicopter. I don't think they were quite ready. A couple of them on the first days of the helicopter were a little, oh, crikey, there's something in our space. I mean, Boss Greg can talk to this because that is something that's never been done before. And when you're doing your formation flying, there's no other airplane or anything allowed in your space for a 10-mile radius.
You had to have sanitized airspace to keep the distractions down, right? And to put a helicopter up there like we were able to do because it was so well briefed, and Kevin LaRosa was so professional, along with Bub, who was a former Blue Angel who's flown every position, telling Kevin, we need to put the helicopter here, we need to put it there to capture these things. We had the chemistry, could never be matched again. The direction, the director, fabulous. It cannot happen again. So it was time. And we had the Phantom camera.
Yeah, we got to use a Phantom camera, which shoots at 1,000 frames a second. And it was something that we'd thought about early in the production, but how and where, again, I wanted to make sure we used it in the most exciting place possible. And when Kevin LaRosa showed up with he said, we should use the Phantom on Friday. We've got 4 days to shoot. Let's the last day be the Phantom. We're like, great, let's do that. And we had one rain out day. I was apprehensive about connecting the Phantom because there's limits to it. You can only shoot 10 seconds at a time, and you have to then wait 2 minutes before you can shoot the next thing. And they're flying the whole time. They're not stopping. Are you guys ready? You get no second takes. You just got to shoot what you shoot. But what we did that day was we got the best vapors, the best humidity was happening here. So we got footage that we couldn't have dreamed of, because at 1,000 frames a second, if you imagine that's 10 seconds, would take 6 minutes to play at that speed. You get to see the jets in a way you've never seen the jets before.
It's art.
It's pretty incredible.
But that was all fascinating. I loved all of it. But the behind the scenes thing was very intriguing to me, because it showed me what these kind of people are like. Greg, is there a quality that you have to be a Blue Angel? Is there something that when you're looking for people, you go, yeah, you need that?
The personality was the prime aspect of selecting somebody. We knew we could train them how to fly. They came in with the 1,200 hours of flying time ahead of time. We knew we could train them. There was no test of flying skills. We didn't say, okay, show us what you got. Show us what you got in your heart. Show us what you believe, what you think, how you get along. We're going to be on the road together 300 days out of the year, right? In addition to that, we're going to be in front of the American public. Hey, great to meet you. You're awesome, terrific, glad to meet you. We love you. We had to have that kind of personality on the team. And that's how we selected people, right? It was all about your ability to integrate into the culture of the Blue Angels based on gratitude and trust and knowing that they'd become a good teammate. So there's a lot of cool things about it.
You've been back, though, more than once, and most of these get one run, right? What's it like when you come back a second time? Is it just as exciting, or do you go, oh, yeah, this is that? Or how is that for you?
The second time when I came back, made my first return, I guess the second time leading the team, it was a team, some of them knew me, so there was no fear or wonderment about, oh, how's this boss going to be? We've been flying like this with this guy and his profiles, and his demeanor and his actions. What's this guy going to be like, and no, there was no worry about that. And we just fell right into place and just pressed ahead. The second time I came back, the morale was really low. There was an issue with leadership and accuracy. I had to overcome that. And I hadn't flown in 2.5 years. So getting back on a bicycle was not just like getting back on a bicycle. It was a challenge that I didn't know 100% that I could do. I thought I could, not 100%. So coming back that last time, it was important that I reached out and met with each and every member of the squadron, because the talent was there, the skill was there. It's just the beliefs the morale was very low. And I said, look, men and women of this beautiful team, I'm going to give it 150%. I'm going to give it all I've got. I ask you to return that to me, and we're going to get it done. And within about 10 days, we're back on the road again, flying air shows like they'd never seen. So
what's it like, though, to be in that position? Is it real? Is it like being a celebrity?
We didn't allow ourselves to feel like we were celebrities. We humiliated each other if we needed to keep the egos under control, right? And the other thing we got to do is every show site we went to, we asked the Make-A-Wish chapter to bring the kids out. And you talk about humbling. You talk about the superstars, the heroes, the real rock stars were those kids who got up in the morning not knowing what they're going to face that day. We got up in the morning going, okay, we're going to go, what's any clouds out there? We're going to go fly and have a good time and meet with people, have a great time. But these kids, they were the superstars. They kept us humble, knowing that they were facing challenges that we never had to face. So did we get big heads? No. We kept each other down. We couldn't be that way. And that's what we looked for, that kind of humility in the people we selected.
All right, Bruce, thanks for that interview. I definitely am going to go watch this one because, even though I'm not necessarily the most adventurous person, like I would never fly an airplane, I do enjoy some of these kind of daredevil-y type of things because it's fascinating to me, the mindset in certain people. Like, I think about the documentary Free Solo, which won an Oscar for documentary.
The thing about Free Solo is you watch them filming this guy go up there, but they have to be up there too.
Right.
And I think that's the bigger story is how do you get a photographer to get up there to shoot this? There's no way. No way.
All of those, right? It's like, who is going up there with the Free Solo guy? Who's going up there on, whenever they do those documentaries on Everest and stuff. So there's like the crazy person who's doing these things, but there's that other crazy person that's right behind them. So yeah, I love watching these because it just fascinates me. And there was that other documentary on HBO a couple of years ago. I think it was a multi-part thing called the 100-Foot Wave. The guy that was trying, there's that in Europe, I think it's off the coast of Spain or Gibraltar or something. It's got these insane waves because of the way like the ocean and the Mediterranean Sea come together, and it just churns up these just massive waves. And it goes through how, he's a Hawaiian surfer, but he goes there to try to conquer the biggest waves of the world, and even his wife is like a big wave surfer, and she tried it and tapped out, and she's like, I don't want to die, and it's just kind of, it's crazy. So it's just, I mean, this one I definitely want to check it out.
Well, you know how you think, oh, I'm the seventh one they would have picked. The idea that I even got to walk in the airspace that they were in is enough. It's fun watching them at air shows, but then I can go home and I don't have to worry about being sharp for the rest of the day. It's like, okay, I'm good. And even they're walking to the planes. It's like, look at the precision on that. You've got to be in step with the other guys, and then you've got to salute, and then you've got to get up in your plane in like 3 steps, and you're in there. It's insane. It's insane. So it's one of those things. Yes, and Free Solo for the life of me. But you saw the guy in that movie where he's living in like the back end of a trailer camper like thing, and you go, okay, that says enough right there. If he's willing to rough it to be able to climb up a straight edge, no, this is not happening. I can see it in the movies, but I don't need to see it in person.
Yeah. You mentioned too with the how much liquid they lose in the cockpit, and how they have to stay hydrated. It got me thinking also to just military rations and stuff. There's a YouTuber, Steve 1989. He taste tests military rations, and he does them from he's like tried Civil War hardtack that he's found. He's tried things that like didn't spoil from World War II. It's a little bit nerve-wracking watch, but he also tries like more modern things. And there's
I think I got some of those World War II things in my kitchen.
but there's some of these with not necessarily with these fighter jets, but just the long range bombers, the guys that are flying at like 60,000 feet, and they're flying 24 hours and back. You have to eat along the way, and they have, it's called like tube food, where it looks like a thing of yeah, it's like toothpaste. It looks like toothpaste containers. It has a straw that goes through their helmet, and all the foods are like lightly caffeinated, so that keeps them awake. So it's like like chocolate pudding with caffeine, or turkey soup with caffeine.
What do they do
And it's
about
just
going to the bathroom?
I think they have a setup. I don't know. I think part of the reason why they don't have solid food is to make that easier on them.
Yeah, well, I get a big gulp or something when I get on the blade.
Yeah.
You go, oh wow, I have a little problem here.
Right,
What am I
exactly.
gonna do?
Yep.
And they would have the wet jumpsuit.
Right, exactly. So what else do we have going on right now?
Garfield the movie is out there in case you're interested. If you go to Walmart, you're going to see a whole big display of it and the stuffed animals you can get. So they're counting on it to be a big one. But also Furiosa, which is the new Mad Max film, is coming out this Memorial Day weekend. And that will be huge.
Yeah.
I have people already asking about how well did it do? Well, it hasn't gotten into the theaters yet. So we'll see. But I think that will be big. And it has Chris Hemsworth in it, Anya Taylor-Joy. So we'll see what happens. And there are some cameos. So those are things that people are waiting for. What's odd is that usually by now in other years, we would have quite a few films from which to pick. I think that because of the streaming world, it's not as much. So it's either or is what it amounts. Well, people are going to be jumping at that, but I think you got to see the new Mad Max film on a huge screen. I think you really need that kind of look.
Yeah, I'm really, I think I'm kind of concerned about the state of the movie industry at this point, because I expected Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes to be doing better than it's doing right now.
It could pick up though. I think it will.
It could, but I know it's right around 100 million right now after 2 weeks, which is fine, but it's not like, like a year ago when Mario Brothers was going gangbusters,
right?
And this is a franchise, so you would expect, and it's from what I'm hearing, that one got some pretty good reviews too.
Great, I loved it.
Yeah,
loved it. It's too long. The beginning part of it needs to be chopped off and just get you into the heat of the action.
Yeah,
because once it gets going, you can't leave it. It's that good.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to see it because I don't mind the rebooted franchise. I don't think it's been amazing, but they've definitely kept my attention. It sounds like this one's going to be better. But, like If dropped in theaters this past weekend and it did not do well, which doesn't bode well for the children's kind of level of things. And you got Garfield coming up, and I'll tell you what, there's, like I know Garfield loves lasagna. I hate lasagna. It is not that is one of those meals that I just can't get behind. And It's a very heavy dish, I guess. Like I do enjoy pasta, but I like a little bit lighter. It's just like lasagna is just too
So
much.
it's not your taste.
Right. Garfield, if I was a cat, maybe, but I'm not. But yeah, I'm a little concerned. And even with Mad Max as a franchise is one of those sci-fi franchise. I know everybody loves it. It I just have never been able to get into it. Even the last one. I know everyone's like, "Oh, it's gonna be Best Picture. It's the greatest thing ever." And I watched it as I didn't love it.
You're a big music fan, though.
Yeah.
You had Back to Black, which is the Amy Winehouse story, about this last week. And
Okay.
to be honest with you, I was so disappointed in that film because I was expecting I would get answers. Led a very short life. She was huge and then dead. And honestly, you have no concept of what might have killed her. It's, I think, where you get family members in there and they kind of launder the truth. There was a documentary about her called Amy that did really well and was brutally honest. And I think this is the family's way of trying to clean up whatever they did in that so that it doesn't make Amy look like maybe there is some blame here somewhere for the way she was. But honest to God, you think it's the 1950s and she's wearing a poodle skirt and she's getting a job at a restaurant and then she's in a bar and then she's suddenly signing a label. It's like everyone that you've seen, but you get no concept of what her life was like, except this Amy Winehouse smokes more cigarettes than anybody in the world. I swear to God, she's got a cigarette in her mouth every 2 seconds. So I concluded cigarettes killed Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, she's in that line of iconic musicians who died at age 27. Jim Morrison,
Right.
Kurt Cobain. I mean,
Right.
it's a pretty there's a lot. There've been quite a few, and and a lot of them just died because of just weird circumstances and health issues or demons that they were battling or whatever. So just a sad end to her life, and yeah, that might be one to take a look at.
I was disappointed, really
Okay.
disappointed in it. And
Yeah.
the who plays Amy, good, she even does the singing. But what's so stupid about this is they start out kind of planting the seeds that she loves Tony Bennett and she loves Body and Soul and, all this kind. So you think, okay, it's going to end with her and Tony Bennett and singing Body and Soul. It does not, because they must not have gotten the rights to be able to use.
Oh.
And so it ends with, sorry, I'm spoiling, but there you are. It ends with her winning the Record of the Year Grammy, which was presented by Tony Bennett.
Okay.
But you still need that kind of follow-up where he and she made the song.
Yeah.
And that won a Grammy too. It's an odd time. I've said it too many times. They need to be event programming. To make it in a theater, it has to be an event. And if it's not an event, then you have to figure out how to make it an event. They didn't do that in this case. And I don't know that Garfield is doing it, even though there is a big display at Walmart.
Yeah. So the only other thing I've really been watching lately, the Jinx Part 2. Did you watch the Jinx when that came out?
I watched the Jinx, but not Part 2. What do they have in Part 2?
Part 2 is kind of bringing you up to speed. So, because if you remember the Jinx, the original one kind of ended, and then like after that final episode ended, obviously
History was still happening.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this guy, we might want to go arrest this guy now. So it sort of brings you up to speed of what's happened since, and I had to look because I couldn't even remember when the original Jinx came out, and it's almost 10 years ago. I mean, it's been quite a long ride since. So it goes into his arrest, the circumstances, the trial, Los Angeles trial. I would say I'm not completely caught up yet. It's been one of those that I picked up on it late, so I'm a couple episodes behind. It's better. It's definitely better than Making a Murderer Part 2, which I feel like, they did Making a Murderer to kind of go through the whole Stephen Avery trial.
Right.
And then Making a Murderer Part 2 kind of felt like we did well with the first one, so let's make a second one. And the second one just It just doesn't tell enough of a story, in my opinion, and that's something that I kind of lived through to an extent because I was at the trial, a good chunk of the trial of Making a Murderer.
You were a witness?
I was no, I was on the coverage team, so I was there. You can see me briefly in the
Oh,
original. Yeah, I'm there in one of the
so
episodes.
now you're looking to see if you're in the sequel.
I was not in the sequel. Definitely not. So the Jinx Part 2 is definitely solid because it does get back into the case. It looks at a trial. Actual news has really come to light, and I don't feel like they're milking anything here. I feel like they're actually trying to present an updated aspect and bring some closure to the case. So I feel pretty good about this one.
I watched part of Bridgerton, the third season. Is it
Oh
third?
yeah.
You know, I'm not into that. I've decided I'm not into that. I don't really care about that. And I don't know why, but maybe it's because it's too formulaic, where each kid gets their season of doing whatever. And I think that would be a boring time to live, even though, you know.
Yeah. It's definitely, it was one of those shows that I never thought I'd get into, but my wife and I, we watched the first season and we enjoyed it. Watched the second season, enjoyed it. They did that third, it wasn't a true season, it was more of the Queen Charlotte kind of subplot. I thought that was okay. I didn't really like it. We'll see how this goes. I'm kind of with you. Like I really dug those characters from season one, but the fact that it's more of it's like not an anthology, but it is. So it's like you get some of the characters kind of coming and going, but you kind of lose. It's not following the same one start to finish all the time. So you kind of have to reset each season and kind of follow something new. And yeah, will I be able to keep with it for 6-7 seasons so they can tell the story of each Bridgerton? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm there, but maybe I'll be surprised. They only dropped, I think, 4 episodes.
Okay.
So the next 4 will be something. I also watched Man in Full.
Okay.
And I've realized that Jeff Daniels has entered a period of his career where he's kind of this old, cranky kind of, well, for lack of a better comparison, Succession.
Yeah.
He's playing the Brian Cox roles in these films now. And I never saw him as that before. I remember him on Broadway in a thing called 5th of July, where he was like the dumb hunk. And then he went from that to being the dumb in Dumb and Dumber. And then he became the kind of the nice dad in a number of films. And now he's suddenly this old crank in these limited series. So I don't know, like him in this genre or this mode, but it was what it was. The thing that got more attention was there was I can't say it. It's the final scene of the series, and it involves nudity.
Oh boy.
There was a prosthetic that was used, not on him, but on another character.
Okay.
And that became a big rallying cry for people to watch it.
Yeah.
And that's dumb. That's dumb. If the story isn't there, then the audience shouldn't be there either.
Yeah. He really had a fascinating career in my mind, because you go back to like, you thought he was going to be this Jim Carrey kind of slapstick stupid comedy after Dumb and Dumber, but he went on to do a lot of movies, but he's really settled into this just these anthologies or short-lived series. Like he did 2 seasons of The Newsroom,
right,
on I think it was HBO, right? He had that limited series on Netflix. I think it was Netflix, or it's on Netflix. That's where I've seen it. Godless. He did that Hulu series, The Looming Tower, which kind of led into the events that kind of created the situation that allowed for the 9/11 attacks. He's on American Rust now. He's a Man in Full, and then he's constantly doing narration type work also. He's almost like it's a weird cross between, I don't even know what you would consider it, just somebody that keeps on popping up now, and then he's getting into that like Morgan Freeman role of just narrating things too.
There's a little Steve Carell in him where they want to kind of deny the early days. There's a little Bryan Cranston where he wants to kind of shake things up a bit. And then there's the good old kind of Tom Hanks Jeff Daniels, where you want to do the nice guy, the kindly dad person. So there are a lot, and to his credit, he's able to be a lot of different things. I just didn't think that this was his crowning achievement, to be honest. But I get it. I understand it. I see what they're doing. But, let me ask you one more thing. Saturday Night Live, how much of a fan are you?
I'll pick it up here and there, but I don't watch it religiously.
I do, because I want to hear what is going to be in the news the next day about this. But it's entering its 50th year this next year. And they just had the end of the season, the 49th, with Jake Gyllenhaal. And I realized how truly formulaic this is. It has become very mainstream. So you know that you're always going to get a political skit before it starts. Then you're going to get the live open where the guest talks to the audience, and it's something that plays off their reputation or their persona. Then you're going to get a couple of skits, one good, maybe one really bad. Then you get the singer. Then you get the news update, which I think needs a retool right there because it's way too predictable. Then they'll do another skit. They'll do another song, and maybe they'll get another skit in before the end of the night. They used to do really fun characters that they don't do anymore. They don't create new characters that you'll see come back. Lisa from Temecula was one of the best ones this last year, where she was, I think it's Lisa, where she was cutting a steak on the table and the table moved all over and everybody was laughing. It was in the Pedro Pascal episode. That was just incredible. And I remember that the other people used to always create their own characters that they would bring back from time to time. And now they're starting from scratch every episode. They're either doing a game show where, they point out something, or they're doing a thing at somebody's house or a date. And that seems to be the setup to everything. So I think they do need a switch. They've got 17 regular cast members. 17 is too many. And I do think that it's time for some of these ones to hit the road. The guy who does the Trump impression is very good, and he can do a lot of different things. He can stay. I love Mikey Day, but Mikey Day becomes a go-to in a way that he shouldn't be the go-to all the time.
Yeah. Kenan Thompson's been on it forever, too.
Yes, too. And it's laziness on their part that they don't think somebody else can do some of those things. They've got other ones who can do those kinds of characters. They're just not letting them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the show. I've heard rumors that maybe the upcoming 50th season will be the last one, kind of give Lorne Michaels a way to bow out, because he's obviously getting up there in age now. I mean, other than that short period of time where he left the show from 1980 to 84-ish or so. I mean, he's been there from the start. But yeah, there's little things that have bugged me too, where with Weekend Update, it's not as serious as it used to be. It used to be like, they would provide you the news, but now they laugh at each other's jokes, right? And there's a lot of times even where you're watching some of the skits and they break character because they start cracking up. And that's something that it never happened.
I don't know. The news thing used to be very John Oliver, very Daily Show, where it was very sharp. And now you're right. They just are basically ribbing each other and then bringing on an oddball character to be, and here's our guest doing this.
I thought Caitlin Clark was fun on it when they brought her onto Weekend Update a few weeks ago. That was fun, when they do things like that. But I'm with you. We'll see where it goes. It's been around a long time, and maybe it's just time.
Look, I've watched all of them. I've watched from the very beginning when they had the Bad Muppets, and that one year when they had the All-Stars, when you had somebody like Martin Short and Christopher Guest, and it was a good reset for them after a real bad period. And I like that. I think maybe we're ready for another reset, and maybe they do need to bring back some of those people to be on a very special year for the 50th. Maybe it's the year that you bring, maybe Kristen Wiig comes back for the year.
Right.
Maybe, some of those ones that you loved. Yeah. Maya Rudolph seems to be able to come back. Why can't she? Cecily Strong, let's have them back.
Yeah.
But it was just funny because watching the 49th Ender, I thought, yeah, I think we're ready for something.
Well, on that note, I'm ready for something else, and that's Memorial Day weekend, a little stretch off, and I know you've got a little vacation planned, so enjoy your trip. And
Yes, we'll talk all about it when we get back.
All right. Well, for all of you listeners out there, enjoy the holiday weekend, and we will be back again next week with another episode of Streamed and Screened.
What impact do you want to have on the world? At General Dynamics Information Technology, GDIT, we put technology to work on some of the most complex government, defense, health, and intelligence missions. Grow your career beyond your imagination with meaningful work that matters at an award-winning top workplace. If you are driven by a vision of a better and more secure future, join us and apply now at gdit.com/careers.